A pretty significant thing that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Tarkov is actually solo anxiety and gear fear. It's something that I feel doesn't get covered very well, and myself as a player with less than 1,000 hours in the game, it's very hard to listen to these veteran players that have been playing the game for years. So in this video, I'm actually going to be talking about the ways that I deal with solo anxiety and how I overcame gear fear. Let's get into it. What's up guys, my name is Hershi, and in this video we're actually going to be going over solo anxiety and gear fear. You hear a lot of times from players who have been playing the game for thousands of hours on how they deal with solo anxiety and gear fear, or what they did to overcome them. It's very hard for that to appeal to most players, especially beginners, because it's coming from someone who's been playing so long. In this video I hope to go over some things that will hopefully help you out when it comes to both solo anxiety as well as gear fear, and ways to overcome them, ways to get over them, and what's worked really well for myself. So with solo anxiety and gear fear, they do go hand in hand. A lot of times if you have one, you also have the other. There's a lot of aspects to it. What we're going to go over is solo anxiety and some of the ways that I've been able to work through that. I'm a strong believer in, if you're a brand new player to the game, Tarkov is not for the faint of heart, and it's very daunting when you're first starting out. And I highly encourage any new players, if you're a new player, to consider looking at some LFG groups and find some people that you can actually get started with. This is extremely helpful for learning the maps and not being overwhelmed when you spawn into a raid for the first time and you die to a player and you really just don't know what's happening. So the biggest thing when it comes to solo anxiety is finding something you can use to encourage you to queue up for a raid. This is typically going to be a focus on a task that you have from one of the traders, trying to do money runs because you need to make some more rubles. It can be because you are trying to level skills. Whatever it is, just find something that you can set your mind to, and that's going to be your focus when you go into raid. And you do your best to look at it that even if you die, as long as you made some progress on whatever that task might have been, to keep you motivated and keep doing what you have to do so you can overcome this anxiety you get when you play. A great example I have for this is, even at about 850 hours in the game myself, I didn't spend a lot of time playing interchange, and interchange kind of scares me a little bit, especially playing it alone. That being said, I had a task where I had to kill scabs wearing a respirator or one of the two gas masks and kill scabs from less than 60 meters away. I was working on this and I was doing this with other players, and that's all well and good, but when nobody else was around to get on, I caught myself kind of sitting in my stash and just organizing things and just getting anxious about trying to go into the raid and completing the task by myself. Ultimately, I ended up getting the courage to queue up by myself and go on raid. I had already done 14 raids in a row and survived, and not all of those were necessarily with a group, but I was worried about losing that streak. I was worried about losing the guns I was using, but I told myself, you know what, this task is never going to get done if I'm sitting around waiting on people, so let's go ahead and just queue up. So that leads me to my second point, and this is, if you are afraid of going into a raid, whether it be because you are trying to do a task, you're just trying to do some looting, or whatever else, consider going in at nighttime. I know a lot of people don't like doing nighttime raids, but you could get away with cheap night vision or even just a flashlight, and most of the time you won't run into players. It does happen, but at nighttime you generally don't run into players. Most people, if they are doing nighttime raids, are either doing it to make money or they're just trying to complete a task that's very hard to do during the day, so it's a lot easier to move around. And this is what I did. You know, I was 14 raid streak, didn't have anybody to play with, so I decided I got a few scab kills I got to get left on interchange. Let's go ahead and just queue up for a nighttime raid and just hope for the best. I'm really happy that I did though, because that raid turned out to be one of the best raids I've ever had. That only helped reinforce running raids alone. I was able to move at my own pace, take my time. I didn't have to worry about waiting on anybody. I didn't have to worry about what was really going on. Scabs typically don't aggro to you from as far of a distance when you play at nighttime too, and that's not always going to be true during the daytime. This allowed me to do is it actually allowed me to finish out my quest, and in the process I ended up killing Killa, and I didn't even realize it. I was just doing my thing. I was going around, I was popping scabs in the head, and then I came across one of the scabs that I killed that I thought was just a normal scab, and lo and behold, it was actually Killa. And I came up on a lot of good gear, and I was really happy that I ran that raid, because once I killed Killa, I had also killed like 10 other scabs. I made my way to extract and fortunately enough didn't run into anybody, but when I got out, that pressure was relieved from me and just made me feel confident about running solo, and it's something I won't forget. Obviously it was my first time killing Killa, my 15th survive in a row. The only way you obviously get more comfortable is by running raids, and the more good raids you have have like that, the more comfortable you're going to get with playing solo. And then the last thing I'm going to hit on when it comes to solo anxiety is gear fear. A lot of times we are worried about going into raid alone because we don't want to lose the gear we have. Part of our solo anxiety stems from gear fear itself. And if this is the case, you know, that's completely okay. It happens to all of us. If you feel that you're not going into raid because you are afraid that you're going to lose the gear you currently have, then maybe just consider bringing in different gear. Maybe bring in gear you're more comfortable with running and you're not too worried about losing. We're going to touch a little bit more on this as far as gear fear when we talk about gear fear here in a moment, but this is also why I had mentioned at the beginning of the video that they're kind of interchangeable, gear fear and solo anxiety. And a lot of times you can have solo anxiety which is masked as gear fear, and you can have gear fear that's actually masked as solo anxiety. So now that we have solo anxiety out of the way, and the primary thing being if you're trying to get over solo anxiety, just find something that can be your mission objective. Find something that can be your focus, find something that can be your task, because if you at least make some sort of progress towards something every raid, then your death, if you happen to die, doesn't go to waste. All right. Let's go ahead and get into gear fear, which is what most of you are probably here for. So the first thing I'm going to ask you when it comes to gear fear is, do you have gear fear when you play in a group? What I mean by that is, if you were to play with one or more other players, are you worried about losing or wearing your best gear? If the answer is no, it's not that you have gear fear, it is that you have solo anxiety. You're afraid of being alone and losing that gear. Because you're not afraid of losing the gear, you're willing to wear the gear with a security in a sense that you can get the gear back. But whether you're in a group or you're playing solo, there really is no guarantee. What happens if you're running in a 5-man and you're running that best gear and all 5 of you get wiped? At that point, it doesn't matter if you were running alone or you were running in a 5-man, and it comes back to that you didn't have gear fear, you actually had solo anxiety. Now if you realize like, oh well, I don't even want to run the best gear when I am in a group, then you probably do have gear fear. Most of us do when we start. Most of us have both of these when we start. At roughly like 850 hours, like I said, I still deal with it on a regular basis. Typically I feel cursed when I run the best gear. If I'm running a slick and I'm running an Alton, I die to more things than I normally would, and like weird things than I normally would. Grenades, one-taps, Terminator scavs, getting beamed by a scav boss, somehow miraculously falling out of the sky and breaking my legs, whatever it is. It's just, I honestly feel like I die more when I'm wearing stuff that's level 6 armor. And if you did answer yes when it comes to do you have gear fear in a group, if you have gear that's just sitting in your inventory and it's not getting used, when you do run with people, whether it's 1 person or 4 people, consider using this stuff. I know that you're worried about losing it, but you have a better chance of getting it back in a group, and that kind of sounds like it contradicts what I just said about, didn't you just say it doesn't matter if you're by yourself or if you're in a group of 5? Well, it doesn't, but you want to take baby steps to get over that gear fear. Don't let it just sit in your inventory. Consider using it in a group, because it's just going to increase your odds of surviving and everybody else's odds of surviving that you're playing with. If you're still really not comfortable with using that gear, even in a group, then I encourage you to actually sell it. Don't let it sit in your inventory. It's just taking up space. It's wasting rubles that are just sitting there, but instead go ahead and sell it and start using items that you actually like to use, items that you're comfortable in using. And when it comes to items you actually enjoy using, you want to go ahead and work your way up. You know you're only comfortable using level 3 armor items and maybe some of the budget guns, then go ahead and use those level 3 armors and those budget guns. But I encourage you, start buying better ammo. If you're not necessarily going to go with a better gun or better armor, then consider using that money you would be spending on ammo. Ammo is going to be the biggest thing that makes or break anybody in this game. It's going to be the biggest contributor in fights. As long as you can land your shots, even good ammo will do the job, and you're able to land your shots, and it's going to make a world of a difference. Beyond that, when it comes to armor and guns, it just makes it a little easier. But if you can get comfortable with using good ammo, even if you're using budget guns and budget rigs, and you notice that you're winning more of your engagements because of the ammo, you're going to get more comfortable with bringing in better guns and better gear. So once you start getting comfortable with using a specific ammo or a higher tier ammo, even if you're still using a budget gun and gear, the next one is upgrade your gun. So you can keep running that level 3 rig that you're running, but go ahead and put a little more time and work into your guns. Put a little bit more money into your guns. This does go a pretty long way, because now it allows you to have opportunities with that said ammo that you've been using for who knows how long now, to play situations differently. You know, you might have not had the opportunity to spray someone because you didn't have a laser designator on your gun, and you didn't have a foregrip to help with recoil control. But now you possibly do, and you're also using good ammo. So your engagement success rate is actually going to go up from here. And same thing like with the ammo. Now you've upgraded your gun, keep upgrading upgrading your guns. And then once you feel comfortable with your ammo and your guns, then this is time to start upgrading your armor. So now that you've found an ammo that you like, you found a gun that you like, you built it out the way you wanted, now we're going to go ahead and start working on bringing in better gear. With the changes that were made for 12.12 though, level 4 armor goes a lot farther than it did last wipe. Less people are running level 5 armors and level 6 armors. You can get away with using ammos that don't require penetrating level 5 and level 6 armors because most everybody, even now, is still running level 4s. Level 4s are widely available, but level 5s and level 6s are sparse. So something I'm just going to tack on to upgrading first your ammo, then your gun, and then your armor is set left and right limits for yourself. What do I mean by this? I'm saying if you have less than 1,000,000 rubles, no, hey, I should probably run my budget stuff, my budget ammo, and then I need to make some money. And you just keep doing this until you hit 5,000,000 rubles. So once you hit 5,000,000 rubles, don't be afraid to invest. Don't be afraid to buy that better armor, buy that better gun, buy that better ammo, and run that. In general, once you get more comfortable with PvP and running better gear, you're going to be coming out with enough money to at least pay for that kit, pay for that armor. Even if you're not necessarily turning a profit, you notice you're getting more XP every raid because you're killing more scavs, you're killing more PMCs. Even though you are coming out with about the same amount every time, you're not in the negative. You're somewhere in between. And if I'm being honest, you can run a fair amount of raids with that 4,000,000 ruble difference before you really come back down to that 1,000,000 ruble left limit. Because unless you have a string of really terrible raids where you're just getting one tapped and you're not even getting a chance to fight or loot, it's going to take a little while to realistically lose about 4,000,000 rubles before you need to start doing budget runs again. A lot of times, most players, they might lose some, but they're engaging a lot more, they're having more fun, they're gaining more experience. But then what also happens on the flip side of that, now that you're running better gear, you can manage to take on a team of 3 people yourself, and you win the fight, you win the engagement against all 3 of them. Now you've just come up on possibly 3 full kits that if you have the space, you can take out a raid and either use them yourself or sell them and turn that into stuff you do like to use. So even if you've lost a little bit of money from dying previously, you're going to have a raid here and there that's going to make up that difference. And the last thing when it comes to gear fear is actually going to be something I like to call build a backpack. Build a backpack is actually the technique I used when it came to getting over my gear fear. And what it consisted of is you take a large backpack, either you buy it or you take a backpack you already took from a player or you got at a raid. A lot of times this is like an attack 2, this is like a pilgrim, the couch backpack, anything that has a decent amount of space, and you build a kit to put inside of that. So what do I mean by building a kit? So I mean putting an armor in there, putting a helmet if you choose, putting a gun in there, putting any meds you might have that you like to bring into raid, bring any nourishment that you want to bring into raid with you, grenades, fit everything that you need, everything that is essential to run a raid inside of a backpack. And as you are coming across gear, if you're choosing not to sell this gear because it's either, you're scared of using it or whatever the case might be, toss it in the backpack and finish building out a kit. I did this, and at the time I want to say I had 3 thick cases last wipe, but I had full of backpacks already pre-filled with everything I need. We're talking gun, meds, ammo, mags, grenades, literally everything in it. And because of that, I didn't see the cost of all of this. A lot of times it was, I had a backpack that I already had armor in, I had a helmet in, but it was missing a gun, so I would run a raid and I would come out with a gun from another player and I would toss it in that backpack and just buy some ammo if I needed to, buy some mags and toss them in the rig, and that backpack was ready to go. So like I said, I had 3 full thick cases of backpacks. I had a total of, I want to say, like 16 backpacks full of rigs and good stuff too. We're talking level 5 armors, even some of them with level 6 armors. We're talking meta mutants, meta AKs at the time, and anything and everything. It was stuff that I maybe wanted to get more comfortable using, and I just tossed it in a backpack and put together a kit. This allowed me to not only kind of clear up inventory space and put something that I couldn't see it, like put something somewhere where I couldn't see it, so I wasn't thinking about it, but allowed me to put together really nice kits, sometimes $500,000 to $1 million kits. And I just started grabbing backpacks, tossing them on my character, making sure my gun was properly assembled, and loading right into a raid. I'm not looking at the cost of everything that's in there, and frankly, I'm not worried about if I lose it, because in my mind, I'm like, I got 15 or 16 of these things. And it was towards the end of the wipe, but I couldn't even get through all the backpacks. I started bringing them in. I would unload one of the kits for myself, and then I would bring in one of the full kits for one of my teammates, and we would run together. Ultimately, these 16 backpacks backpacks lasted me like 3 weeks to get through all of them. And I had used guns that I was never comfortable using before. I had used gear that I was scared to use. And because I couldn't see the cost associated with it, because I wasn't there in the moment, I wasn't there buying all the ammo, buying the mags, buying the gun and all the attachments, the armor, the helmet, the rig, the backpack, I wasn't seeing that my stash ROUBLE count was going down every time that was happening. So it allowed me to lose these kits if I died, or come out with more stuff and not really think too much about it, because my ROUBLE count wouldn't change. So the build a backpack system is what worked really well for me when it came to getting over my gear fear. And I'm at a point where I really don't feel like I have gear fear. I still do have solo anxiety a little bit, but that's natural. It's, you know, it's one of those things. This is an intense game. I still get my blood pumping, my adrenaline going when I get in fights. I remember at the start of the wipe, I was using a shotgun for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a quest or whatnot, and came across this player as I was looting and had an intense firefight with this guy for like a solid 2 minutes, and I could literally feel my heartbeat. It felt like my vein was gonna rupture in my damn neck. Some of the pluses, some of the benefits of actually playing as a solo player despite having solo anxiety is you don't have to worry about is that you know, in the comms. You don't have to worry about wondering if someone is friendly, if someone is hostile, because it's just you can shoot at literally everybody. Another benefit to playing alone is the fact that you can go at your own pace. You're not worried about trying to help someone else with their task. You're not worried about trying to fight over scavs because you need scav kills for a task. You don't have to worry about sharing loot with anybody. You don't have to worry about any of that. The one caveat I will say is get comfortable using grenades, even if it's just flash grenades. And the reason this is because grenades are great at being essentially kind of like a duo partner with you when you are playing alone. Grenades allow you to play differently, allow you to flush people out where you can't necessarily bait, because if you go down, there's nobody to secure the kill. But beyond that, grenades allow you to even bait out voice lines from scavs. And my personal favorite is tossing a grenade to keep someone from pushing you so you have the ability to heal. So I will just reiterate, you know, when it comes to solo anxiety, find something just to focus on. Find something that you can use as your mission objective. Find something that, you know, even if you die, you feel accomplished. You feel like you got something done when it comes to playing solo. And one last thing to note on solo anxiety, just play however you like to play. Whether you like to rat around and you like to loot, whether you like to play fast and you like to push fights and chase shots. There's no right or wrong way to play Tarkov, and it really is all dependent on each player. It's a player to player basis. Don't let anybody tell you there's a right way to play Tarkov. Do whatever you want to do whatever's comfortable for you, do whatever you enjoy to do. One of the last things I want to add when it comes to gear fear is actually insurance. I know there's a lot of debate as to whether or not, like, should I insure things, should I not insure things? In general, just assume that any gear you have to be okay with losing. So some people like to take the approach of not insuring anything at all, and that's perfectly fine, because it really does suck when you insure things. Let's say you spend 150,000 rubles on insurance for this super nice kit you're taking in, and then you die and you get nothing back. It kind of stinks, because you're like, man, I could have used that on a new gun. I could have done this with that. So I actually encourage this. This is my philosophy when it comes to insurance, in regards to gear fear and like worrying about like, well, what can I get back? What can I not get back? There's going to be two parts to this. So if you're going to run a nighttime raid, I believe you should insure everything. And the reason for this is because you can very easily die to a scav or a cultist, and your body end up dropping somewhere that no player scav or no actual player PMC is going to find. For the most part, your gear should be safe and you should get most of it back, if not all of it. On the flip side of that, if you are running a daytime raid, it's a lot easier for your body to be discovered, and it's more likely that you're going to engage PMCs who will strip you clean like they're vultures. So what do I generally insure when I'm doing daytime raids? I insure things that I'm pretty confident that I'll get them back, because they're either too bulky and people won't take them, or they're just not items most people think about switching out. A quick little tip that I'll tell you that I don't think a lot of people think about: don't insure your fully modded gun. Insure your gun, yes, but insure it before you put on a foregrip, before you put on a suppressor, before you put on a laser designator, and before you put on a sight. If you die and someone comes across your gun, guns are very bulky, and unless someone has that second weapon slot to be able to just pick your whole gun up, it's not always worth the wait either. So most people, I do it, I'm sure you do it, everybody seems to do it, is they'll take your sight, if it's a good sight, they'll strip your suppressor, they'll take the foregrip, and they'll probably take your laser designator. If you insure just your base gun without those items on it, without those attachments on it, you can a lot of times save yourself upwards of 30 to 60,000 in insurance fees, but you'll still get the gun back. For me, the other things I insure is the skull face mask, just because I like them, and you can't buy them until loyalty level 4. Almost always get those back. Headphones, rigs, backpacks, and helmets. With helmets though, if it's an exfil or an airframe, probably won't get it back. That pretty much covers it, guys. I really hope you found this video helpful. I hope that you have a new outlook on gear fear and how you can approach that, as well as solo anxiety. I'm really curious to know how many hours all all of you guys have in game, go ahead and leave a comment down below with your total playtime in Tarkov. Like I said, I'm really curious to see what the demographic is. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did find this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button down below as well as the subscribe button, and consider checking out some of the other content that's on the channel. That's going to wrap it up. My name is Hershi, and I'll see you guys in the next one.